The Penguins introduced Dan Muse officially as their head coach earlier this week with his introductory press conference. Horwat, we have talked a lot over the last couple of weeks about Dan Muse, our thoughts on his resume, but now I want to get your thoughts on his first presser. Kind of now that you've heard him speak, now that you've kind of seen a little bit about what he's all about. Of course, more layers are going to be peeled back as time goes on, as we see more from him. But what were your thoughts on Muse's introductory presser earlier this week and his first opportunity to introduce himself to this fan base?
Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Nothing seemed too eye-popping. Honestly, I think the biggest takeaway that I had was, oh yeah, Kyle Dubas sometimes doesn't wear glasses. Truly, it was very much just a run-of-the-mill. This is my first press conference as an NHL head coach. It's an honor to be an NHL coach. I've reached out to most of the players already. I've especially reached out to the captain. It's, thank you, Kyle. Thank you, the Penguins organization. Thank you this, thank you that. It was just a lot of stuff I expected. Nothing really struck me as shocking. So I didn't have too many takeaways. It really was just, welcome to the team. Welcome to the city. We'll see where it goes from here. Obviously, he said the bullet points of here to win, here to build a good team, here to do this, here to do that. And there was that little talk of defense, and we got a little bit into the schematics of things.
Yeah.
But honestly, you could have straight up read the playbook to me. It's June. I'm not paying that much attention to the playbook right now because I know it's changing in 3 months.
Yeah, especially considering the fact that he hasn't even hired assistant coaches yet. So we don't even know their background, which is going to lend itself towards the type of hockey that the Penguins are going to be playing this fall. So there's still plenty to learn about Dan Muse and his plans for the Penguins organization. But there was one answer in particular that, again, just opened the door a little bit into his personality, into his background that I liked a lot. And, credit goes to Taylor Haas of DK Pittsburgh Sports for asking the question. And honestly, it's a pretty in-your-face question saying basically, the best you could muster as a player was D3 hockey. So what about being a head coach of some professionals and some people that are, and I'm paraphrasing here, are on the Mount Rushmore of this sport, is it going to be weird for you saying, hey, do this, do that? And he essentially said, one, I wasn't even very good in D3, so don't even give me the statute of a good D3 player because I'm not, which I think will endear himself to the fan base a little bit because if there's anything that myself and I feel like a lot of people from Pittsburgh like, it's self-deprecating humor. So, check that box for Mr. Muse. But he went on to say, listen, I've been coaching college. I've coached U.S. National Development Team program. Essentially everywhere I've coached, everybody has been at a higher level than I ever was as a player. So it's nothing new. And in that answer, it's not just what he said, but it's the message. Hey, Dan Muse is comfortable in his own skin. Dan Muse is comfortable with the route that he took to get to where he's at right now. And you're going to need to be that. You're going to need to be all in on what brought you to the dance if you're going to be successful here. So I liked what I saw from Dan Muse. And again, like you mentioned, it's June. It's an introductory presser. A lot of this stuff was copy paste. You could probably look at every introductory presser over the last half decade, and 95% of it is going to match exactly what we heard from Dan Muse earlier this week. But at the same time, I think it was something that allowed Penguins fans at least a glimpse into who is going to be behind the bench for this team this fall.
For sure, and that's the most I expected. He endeared himself to the fan base a bit. I just wasn't expecting too much. Like I said, it was nice seeing him kind of acknowledge or at least be asked about his playing history because, first of all, that's not something I would have ever thought to have asked because that's not something that normally, I don't know, that I would care about. Like, it's showing that it is a bit of a break from the mold in terms of the NHL and the boys club type aspect of things.
Mm-hmm.
How a lot of like the Flyers, they have what, like 5 former players in their organization, or off the ice in their organization at least. And the Kings were on the boys club train for a long time. I think you get Boston was on it for a long time, and they still are. the Penguins have never really been big on that, but this is a completely new direction by way of not only is he not a former NHLer like the Penguins had in Sullivan and Bilesma, and there's got to be another one back there that I'm just forgetting, but he is a completely fresh face from the assistant coaching levels at the NHL, nothing higher than that. And not only that, he also didn't play that deep into his life. So he's always been a coach. He's always been a bench boss for hockey players, like he said, that have been to higher levels than he ever was. So I like that it's a new direction for this team to go in, and it isn't your run-of-the-mill former player who, I mean, the superstars usually don't become coaches. We saw what happened with Wayne Gretzky. But it's not a former NHLer. It's not a former AHLer. It's not even a former ECHLer. It's a guy that played AAA, apparently wasn't good at it. And he's worked his way up as a coach, and as nothing else, as a coach to the NHL level.
Yeah, you mentioned it's a boys' club, and in the NHL more so than I think in other fields. It's more of who you know than what you know, but this is a guy who has had to work for everything that he has gotten. He even said Peter Laviolette, whenever Laviolette gave him that first opportunity at the NHL level, he didn't know him. He just got it based on his resume. And I think there is something to be said for him continuing to build that resume to get to this point where now he has the reins of an NHL squad. Not only that, he has the reins of an NHL squad that is in a very interesting position. And we'll get into that more this episode and also as the summer goes on.